Hello everyone and welcome back to Alternative Apex Project Pinnacle here for round number 6 of the 2026 Formula 1 season. After today we will be halfway through the season. If you have missed any of the previous races, I do urge you to go and check them out because we have had some excellent battles up to this part of the season so far, and hopefully we shall have even more today around, of course, the legendary Monza circuit, the Temple of Speed. And coming into this race, it is George Russell that leads the Drivers' Championship standings by a decent margin of 23 points over his fellow Brit and 2019 rookie Lando Norris. Behind them, Carlos Sainz is leading the chasing pack on a track which today should, in theory, suit the Williams car quite nicely, so I wouldn't be surprised if he can gain some points on his rivals today. Of course, the track also can bring some drama, so for those up at the top of the championship, today could well be about avoiding some of that and just getting through this event safely. Coming into this weekend, we did have some contract news. Of course, previously, if you missed it, Carlos Sainz signed a 2-year deal extension at the Belgian Grand Prix. Ocon also extended with Haas for a year, and then Antonelli signed a 2-year extension with the Mercedes team. But here today in Italy, first bit of contract news coming from the Audi Formula 1 team as they enter their second season of Grand Prix racing. Gabriel Bortoleto has re-signed to the team for 2027. That's good news for both the team and for their young driver looking to move forward together. It's not been the best of seasons for them so far, but hopefully they can move forward in the future. The big announcement, though, coming in to this weekend was the confirmation of the retirement of a Formula 1 legend, and that is Fernando Alonso. With Aston Martin, this will be his final season in Formula 1. He announced his retirement at the end of this season. He will be going into a much more relaxed lifestyle, I'm sure, where he'll be racing probably pretty much every weekend there is, just not Grand Prix cars, sadly, for us. And in the rumour mill of drivers that may well be moving to take that seat at Aston Martin, which this season has looked like a very competitive seat indeed, Max Verstappen is currently one of the top prospects for that seat. Of course, the 4-time world champion, not having a season to remember this year at all with Red Bull Ford, and technically he does have a contract in for next year with the Red Bull team, but all assumptions are that, based on the performance that they've been having this year, the contract break clauses should be more than filled. So presumably, he is free to move to Aston Martin if he were to want to, but other teams on the market as well at this stage of the season. Verstappen, though, for now, looks to be the favourite to be moving to Aston Martin, a reunification with Honda as well for the Dutchman. Pressure, of course, on Ferrari going into this weekend, Ferrari's home race, and they have brought along a wildcard entry, and they have brought their Le Mans winner Antonio Giovinazzi to join them in their third entry for this weekend, and immediately he was looking pretty good on Friday. His pace in one-lap qualifying was pretty solid, put him in right in the mix, and it should be no issue for him to qualify into the Grand Prix. We do also have one other qualifier in today with the wildcard entry system, and that is the Racing Bulls KTM of Yuki Tsunoda. He will be making a return to that team this weekend here in Monza, which is sort of the home race still for that team. As much as it's changed in the last 2 decades, that team was once upon a time Minardi and is still based in the original location, for now at least anyway. So potentially a good chance for that team to have a nice home weekend with a third car on the grid, and based on the season they've had so far, they could do all the data they can get, and hopefully they can impress. And most importantly, let's just hope Tsunoda can get into the Grand Prix, because that car hasn't had the best qualifying record this season so far. So hopefully, for everyone's sake, and for the fans' sake, of course, that we get to see Tsunoda racing on Sunday's Grand Prix. But of course, we need to find out what order they'll be lining up in the first sprint race. So let's go and have a look at which drivers will be fighting it out for pole position today. At the rear of the first sprint race, we have Yuki Tsunoda in his Racing Bulls KTM lining up 12th on the grid, just behind his teammate Liam Lawson, and you'll never guess who's in front of them. It is the third Racing Bulls KTM just ahead of them. Arvid Lindblad means that at least one of the Racing Bulls KTMs will be in the Grand Prix. They'll be hoping, of course, more than just the one get through here with the top 10 out of this 12-man race getting through. Then we see Isaac Hadjar there in the Red Bull Ford with Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac just ahead of him, Ferrari power in the back of that one. Esteban Ocon Ocon looking to try and have a good race here today. That tends to go well on the lower downforce circuit, so in theory it should go well here today. Antonio Giovinazzi, the home hero here, the Italian, looking to try and prove that Antonelli isn't the only very talented Italian Formula 1 driver. Ahead of Giovinazzi, we see Lando Norris and then Oscar Piastri just ahead of him there. You then see George Russell in his Mercedes. But at the front of this sprint race, we've got Antonelli in second position, both Mercedes cars in this first sprint race. But on pole position, the fastest man in one lap qualifying, Alexander Albon for Williams. A surprise there for many, but Williams certainly were not surprised. Very pleased with that one lap pace. They're hoping they convert it to a pole position. The lights are coming on, the revs rise, and we are racing for sprint race number 1, and we're underway at Monza. Albon with a strong start immediately away from pole position, but Antonelli trying to get alongside as they head into the braking zone of turn number 1. Russell peeking around as well as Piastri gets alongside him. Albon getting very aggressive out of turn number 2, and for the first time today they come out of the Rettifilio chicane, and it is Albon that leads the way. The two Mercedes side by side. Antonelli looks as though he is going to hold on to that position for now, though. Will he be able to get a run as they head up to the second chicane? The Variante della Roggia. He goes for a move to the inside. It looks like he's having a little peek for it, but no, not quite going for it just yet. In fact, Russell having to defend behind against the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. And as they come through the chicane for the first time, Ocon there in 6th place behind the two McLarens. Giovinazzi 7th, Hadjar is in 8th place. That means the Bottas, he's lost some ground off of this start. He's feeling the pressure from Liam Lawson here. Lawson, the top of the Racing Bull KTMs for now at least, as that Tsunoda looking to try and make that pass all the way around the outside. All three of these cars battling it out, and it is Lawson that looks to be holding on to that position for now, as Lindblad now, after being the highest starting of these three cars, finally gets a position back on Tsunoda. So as we stand, it is those three Racing Bull KTMs at the back of the field, but up at the head of the field, Antonelli's looking to take the lead here in his home weekend. He will go to the front fresh off of his first Grand Prix victory. Will he be able to back that one up with yet another Grand Prix pole position? Leads sprint race number 1 for now at least, but Albon in that Williams looks like a very slippery man on these straights. Can he get to the inside of the final corner? The Parabolica Alboreto, he gets to the inside, he's gone all the way alongside. Will it be enough? Albon will get through on Kimi Antonelli and up back into the lead. So leading lap number 1, it will be the man that started first in this one. As we look further back, that's Norris. Crucially, Norris is coming into the pit lane there. An issue for the McLaren on the opening lap, must have picked up damage somewhere. Isaac Hadjar also looked like he was coming to the pits, but meanwhile up at the front we've got a battle for the lead once again as the Mercedes cars are hounding Albon for the lead. Antonelli to the inside, Russell just backs out of it at the last second. Albon, will he be aggressive again? He will be. He's going to push Antonelli that little bit wide, and that will be enough for Albon to hold on. As meanwhile we see a battle here between the Haas of Esteban Ocon and the Ferrari of Antonio Giovinazzi, both battling over P5 now, with Norris's pit stop pushing him down in the order. Bottas in 7th. Now we see two of the Racing Bull KTM's cars are now inside that top 10. Crucially though, Lawson at the back as well must have had some sort of issue, as well as Norris and Hadjar on the opening lap. Norris currently takes up the final qualifying spot, which will be a risky spot to be in for the rest of this race if he has any further issues. Now as we see, once again they're battling for the lead in two Parabolica Alboreto, and it's Antonelli who will take the position away from Alexander Albon out of the final corner and onto the main straight. But I think we know how this one's going to go. Albon's going to fight back as they head down the main straight and immediately look to try and retake that position. Antonelli, though, being cheered on by the home fans. They look at coming 4 wide briefly there. They perhaps smartly do not do just that, as Russell goes into the back of Albon there, potentially a bit of contact, hopefully no damage for George Russell in that particular incident. As now Antonelli, he's going to be the one that's being aggressive through turn number 2, and it is Andrea Kimi Antonelli that crucially leads out of the Rettifilio chicane and towards the Roggia chicane. It is Antonelli leading the way ahead of Alexander Albon. George Russell in the slipstream. Now can that Mercedes use its superior downforce to pull away from the Williams as we head into that second chicane? Russell getting awfully close to the back of Albon there, but already we've seen a lot of contact between those two in this lap. Hopefully they're both going away with it, but Albon is losing a lot of time now. Piastri is right on the back of this battle too. Norris, of course, down on the back of the field as Piastri's actually make a double overtake into the final corner. As once again there's contact. There must be issues here for Albon and Russell to be both passed so easily by the McLaren of Piastri. And let's see, is there? There is. Look at them both moving to the inside of the track, and Albon is coming to the pit. Started first. He's going to drop all the way to the back. Presumably Russell also into the pit lane. Antonio Giovinazzi here in his home event is going to move up into 3rd place. No question over him qualifying into this Grand Prix now. In fact, it looks like he's going to start the race in 5th position. Ocon up into 4th now. Arvid Lindblad is in to 5th position now. He's battling away with Valtteri Bottas behind him. Tsunoda also looking safe to qualify into this Grand Prix, as we see the Cadillac on the inside of the Racing Bulls KTM, wheel to wheel through the Variante Rettifilio, and it is going to be again a close battle on the exit of turn number 2, but it's Lindblad that holds on to that position. Albon has come out the pit lane crucially in 8th position. That will still mean a qualifying position for him, as has George Russell in 9th place, and Lando Norris for now holds on to that final qualifying in position. So drama for 3 of the big names in this championship, and especially in this weekend, and they will all be starting the Grand Prix deep in the field at the very best here. But up at the front, one man with no worries at all here, through the final corner for the final time, coming out of the Parabolica Alboreto, Andrea Kimi Antonelli is going to make it back-to-back Grand Prix pole positions, and where better to do it than here at home. It's a Monza victory, sprint number 1 to Antonelli, and Oscar Piastri comes back into this race in 2nd place. Giovinazzi is in 3rd there. Brilliant showing for the wildcard entry. Lovely stuff to see for the home fans, getting a brilliant double top 3 in the first sprint race. Lots of drama to unpack from that race then, with Lando Norris down in 10th place. He'll start the Grand Prix in 19th. George Russell only in 17th. And Alexander Albon, the one that was quickest over 1 lap qualifying, he will start only in 15th position. Incredible stuff there. Could prove to make the Grand Prix especially exciting for us. Missing out on qualifying, sadly, Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson, both Red Bull Ford-powered cars. However, of course, one being a Works Red Bull in Hadjar and the other being the Racing Bulls KTM of Liam Lawson. Lawson again this season, his qualifying record has not been the strongest in the field. Himself and Nico Hülkenberg seem to be the ones struggling the most with that, but at least Lawson has got some points on the board so far. Hadjar, huge disappointment for him in a weekend where Red Bull weren't expecting a huge amount, in fairness. They weren't anticipating to be fighting for a Grand Prix victory, but points, you'd imagine, regardless of how bad the Red Bull is a basic expectation of that team. So not to even be in the Grand Prix will have Hadjar not potentially looking the best within the Red Bull camp. But as we run through the rest of the results, Antonelli, of course, the winner ahead of Piastri. Giovinazzi in 3rd position. Perhaps the cheering on of the crowd will be enough for Giovinazzi to get in the mix on Sunday. Esteban Ocon, brilliant in 4th place there for Haas. Lindblad, stunning drive from him. 9th place, starting position for the Grand Prix, is incredible for a Racing Bulls KTM, and surely he can get some points today, or on Sunday, for the Grand Prix. That is a bare minimum when you're starting that high, you'd have to imagine, but we know that did come due to some issues for drivers ahead of him. Valtteri Bottas in 6th place ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. The wildcard entries both making it through into the Grand Prix, which is lovely to see for the championship, and shows that the wildcard system is working very well so far, as I don't believe any of the wildcard entries we've had so far this season have failed to qualify. We'll have to hope that record keeps up. Who knows what may happen in the future. Behind Tsunoda, of course, Albon, Russell and Norris bring up the rear of the qualifying drivers. Now let's have a look over at sprint race number 2 and see how they line up as they battle for the even-numbered grid spots. Starting at the back of the field then for the 2nd sprint race of the day, it is the Audi of Nico Hülkenberg there. Again, another disappointing qualifying for the Audi team, as it's his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto just ahead of him on the grid in the 11th position as they try to avoid a double DNQ this weekend. Lance Stroll, disappointing from him in 1 lap qualifying. The Aston Martin not looking particularly good on 1 lap pace here. He lines up only 10th, just behind the Cadillac of Sergio Perez. Pierre Gasly actually slightly disappointed from his qualifying session. He has been out-qualified by his teammate Franco Colapinto over 1 lap around here. The Alpine expected to go well here with its Mercedes engine in the back, but seemingly not quite as good around the corners to be any higher. Max Verstappen there just ahead of the 2 Alpine cars. Fernando Alonso did manage to drag his car up the order just a little bit further than his teammate did. Lewis Hamilton just ahead of Fernando Alonso, those two with a great history of battles amongst themselves. Ahead of him, we see in 3rd place on the starting grid for sprint race number 2, Oliver Behrman, looking to make it a very strong weekend for Haas. But lining up second on the front row, it is the Williams of Carlos Sainz, but on pole position, it is one of the other home heroes. He may not be from Italy, but he's certainly become one through connections to the great legendary brand that is Ferrari. It's Leclerc on pole. As the revs rise and the lights come on, we are racing and are underway for the 2nd sprint race of the day. Leclerc leads them away ahead of Sainz, Behrman, as they battle on towards the Retafilio chicane. And Leclerc trying to hold on to the lead. Sainz looking for a move there. Can he get alongside? Not quite able to. He's going to back out and potentially go for an exit there. Behrman holds on to that third position ahead of Hamilton and Alonso. Colapinto ahead of Verstappen there. A strong start from the Argentinian driver after Alpine's disastrous Belgium weekend where they both failed to qualify. Bortoleto there at the moment just towards the back end of the qualifying in spots. Leclerc is feeling the pressure from Carlos Sainz though as they head into the first chicane. He will hold on for now as we see Verstappen retaking that position on Franco Colapinto. Perez gets past Gasly as well as Bortoleto looks to get involved in that scrap too. Towards the back of the field, Hulkenberg already dropping back just a tad here. Perez in that 8th position for now is looking like he is in a solid position. He wants to join his teammate in the Grand Prix, but of course he's got Gasly, Stroll behind him, two drivers that in theory on a track like this you'd expect to be in the field, so the pressure's on for Perez. But up at the front of the field, one man that has even more pressure on him at the moment, that is Charles Leclerc with the Williams of Carlos Sainz. We saw in sprint race number 1 how quick that Williams was in the straights, and look at it again here, flying down the main straight. Charles Leclerc could well lose the lead, and he will do just that. The top spot switches hands. It now goes to Carlos Sainz in the Williams. He's up to the head of the field now, as Leclerc has no choice but to back out as he thinks about a move into turn number 2. That would have been bold there as Verstappen now clears another car, showing that Red Bull has some pace in it as he clears up ahead of Fernando Alonso. Battling towards the rear of the field though, we've got Bortoleto being passed by Lance Stroll. Now both Audis, along with Lance Stroll, are not in a position to qualify, and that gap, because of that battle to the qualifying in spots, is looking a bit bigger than they would want to see. As we see at the head of the field once more, Carlos Sainz leads Charles Leclerc, and Sainz is pulling away out front at the moment as Hamilton in the 4th position is on the back of Oliver Behrman for that 3rd position in the slipstream of the Haas. Around here you'd expect the Ferrari to be that little bit better, and Hamilton goes to the inside. They're going to make a little bit of contact there. Hamilton goes back around the outside, but he goes wide. He's gone through the gravel. He'll have to dig himself out, and he will crucially get himself out of there. With issues for Hamilton, he gets himself back on the racetrack, but that's cost him a couple of spots, and that potential P3 is looking like it may well be lost now in this sprint race, as Behrman continues to have a brilliant first sprint race. Haas as a whole in this event have been incredible. As we see Gasly currently holding on to that final qualifying in spot, but expect that battle to go all the way to the line. As we see at the head of the field, once more, Carlos Sainz in the Williams. The man 3rd in the championship is coming towards the Curva Parabolica Alboreto for the final time now. Carlos Sainz turns in, and Charles Leclerc is not close enough to do anything about it. The front row start is going to go the way of the Spaniard. Williams may not have had the race they wanted with Albon, but at least they've still got a car in the front row. Carlos Sainz will start the Grand Prix in 2nd after winning sprint race number 2 here in Monza. Charles Leclerc will take 2nd as we look towards the qualifying in spot. Stroll's had an incredible final lap. He's up into 7th place now ahead of Colapinto. Colapinto now ahead of Perez. Perez in that final qualifying in spot, and it's going to be Pierre Gasly who will be the first driver to miss out as Perez just barely sneaks through, and Pierre Gasly, a disaster, back-to-back do not qualifies for the Frenchman in the French team on a track where they were really hoping to do quite well indeed. The complete results then of that second sprint race, Carlos Sainz wins it ahead of Charles Leclerc. Oliver Behrman hangs on to that 3rd position ahead of Max Verstappen. Fernando Alonso is in 5th position ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton only starting the Grand Prix in 12th place there. That means he will be the lowest starting Ferrari in the Italian Grand Prix. Not what he would have wanted at all with the wildcard entry of Giovinazzi in that 3rd car. Just behind him, Lance Stroll with an incredible final lap there. We missed actually to see how he pulled it off, but at one stage in that race he was outside the qualifying spots. He ends up 7th in the end, so double qualifying for the Aston Martin team, which you'd have to say is the bare minimum, frankly, for a team of their speed, but nonetheless it looked a bit, little bit on the edge at times there. Behind Stroll, we see the Alpine of Franco Colapinto. First time this season, we're really seeing him comfortably outperforming Pierre Gasly, and crucially that he does it here because, of course, Gasly did not qualify in that 10th position as Perez took the final qualifying in spot on Audi. Wow. When are they going to catch a break? They are not having a good time at the moment. We have to hope that they've got some upgrades coming soon, because at the moment they are really struggling. Still, their best result of the season so far has come with Sebastian Vettel in their wildcard entry at the Nürburgring, where he beat both full-time drivers. And no disrespect to Sebastian Vettel, he is a legend of Formula 1, but he'd been out of the car for a good few years, and he still came in and did such a good job. So the car obviously is not the quickest, but there seems to be more issues at Audi than just that. So hopefully we can start to figure out stuff at Audi, because we want to see that car in Grand Prix. Of course we do. We want to see a nice variety on the grid. So maybe they will bring some upgrades in the future, or maybe they've already given up on this season. I wouldn't blame them, considering some of the results they've had. So perhaps they've already given up on this year and they're focusing next year. We'll have to wait and see. But we're only just reaching the halfway point after this race, so a long way to go if they have already given up on their 2026 hopes. But now, let's have a look at how the field will be lining up for the Italian Grand Prix here at the Temple of Speed. Starting last in the Italian Grand Prix, big drama in that first sprint race. Lando Norris second in the Drivers' Championship there on his McLaren with Michelin tyres. Ahead of him, it is the Cadillac of Sergio Perez. Next up, we see the Mercedes of George Russell there. Championship leader starting only 17th, lining up just behind the Alpine of Franco Colapinto. Alexander Albon, the man that was quickest over 1 lap in on Friday, he lines up in only the 15th place. Lance Stroll sneaking up the order in the end of his sprint race to get 14th place on the grid. Yuki Tsunoda, the Racing Bulls KTM wildcard entry, will line up in 13th place. Lewis Hamilton only 12th in his second home Grand Prix with Ferrari. As there we see Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac in 11th place. Just inside the top 10, though, we can see the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso in that Honda-powered car. Next up on the grid, we see the incredible performance from the first sprint race. Arvid Lindblad lines up in the 9th position. Max Verstappen only in 8th position there, just barely the highest qualifying Ford-powered entry in this event. Esteban Ocon, another man with an impressive sprint race, with his teammate just ahead of him in Oliver Behrman. This could be a big day for the Haas team as they want to get in the mix with the rivals ahead of them and pull away from those that have struggled so far this season. Antonio Giovinazzi next up on the grid in 5th position, just barely out-qualified by his teammate Charles Leclerc. On the front row, in 3rd place, we have Oscar Piastri, but on the front row of the grid in 2nd position, we have the Williams of Carlos Sainz, and on pole position for his home Grand Prix, back-to-back poles, will he make it back-to-back wins? It is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. As the revs rise, the lights come on, and we are racing and are underway for the Italian Grand Prix of 2026. It's a strong start again from our pole sitter, but can Sainz challenge into turn number 1? It looks like he's going to have a go, but he's not quite close enough this time, as it's actually the McLaren of Piastri that's going to make the move, as Giovinazzi is going to pass his teammate there. Charles Leclerc drops in behind his Italian teammate. Behind them, the two Haas cars. Then you see Lindblad has jumped ahead of Verstappen as well here, so already we've got some surprising mix-up off of the grid as battling their way up the order. Alexander Albon already up 2 spots to try and gain more into the second chicane as there's a bit of smoke ahead. Hopefully everyone's got through there all right. It looks as though they have done so, at least for the most part. There's a little bit of a wide moment there from Behrman. He has been passed by his teammate, and now Lindblad and Verstappen are doing battle once more as they head through the first of the Lesmo corners. Around the outside for Lindblad, around Max Verstappen. Not a bad move at all. There's Verstappen caught off guard, I think, by that. He's now going to feel the pressure from Tsunoda and could well lose that position as well here as they head down the back straightaway towards the Ascari chicane. Bottas next up in that battle. He'll be trying to take advantage of Verstappen's poor opening lap. Verstappen, though, feeling that perhaps he needs to get himself back into a rhythm here. As wow, 3 wide into the Ascari chicane is not something you see every day. Russell very brave through there. He jumps ahead of Albon and Hamilton. Hamilton going in the wrong direction in this Grand Prix so far. He dropped behind Stroll as well, and Hamilton now outside of the points-paying positions. Crucial stuff for this for Ferrari. It is a disappointing start, to say the least, for Lewis Hamilton. He has got Norris right on his tail as well, though. Colapinto and Perez at the back of the field at the end of lap number 1. As they come around the final corner, we've got a few cars driving to the pit lane, and one of those is Max Verstappen. He was going slowly. That is why Alonso as well caught up in an incident on the opening lap, as is Lewis Hamilton. A nightmare start to the home Grand Prix of Ferrari, at least for Lewis Hamilton. As now we see Russell and Albon trying to make their way through the field, continuing to battle their way up the order. Russell just ahead of Albon still. with Lance Stroll on their tail. Norris surviving the opening lap, that'll be crucial for him, trying to shadow Russell's up the order here. Charles Leclerc has repassed his teammate for this weekend, Antonio Giovinazzi, to take that position away as he goes a little bit offensive into that chicane. And will Giovinazzi go around the outside? He's going to give it a go. And what a move from Antonio Giovinazzi. He is not afraid to make some bold manoeuvres in this Grand Prix. Very, very good stuff there from the Italian driver. He knows this is his one weekend to prove a point, and certainly he is doing just that, as his fellow Italian leads the Grand Prix. Andrea Antoli down towards the Ascari chicane for now, but Giovinazzi feeling pressure once more from Charles Leclerc. Leclerc needing to try and have a little bit of a better run here today as he's looking for the move as they head into Ascari. He's going to dive to the inside all over the curbs. There's contact. Leclerc sort of slides all over the road. He makes more contact with Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi will lose the place to Esteban Ocon, and Behrman's on the tail of him there, and have both cars got away with that one without any damage. Ferrari, we said that was bold from Giovinazzi earlier, that was even bolder from Charles Leclerc, and that could have thrown away a good chance at a result here if they have picked up any damage, as Behrman is going to pass the Ferrari of Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi certainly looks a tad off the pace, as is Charles Leclerc. He's pulling to the pit lane. Damage for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, and damage for the Ferrari of Antonio Giovinazzi. In the first 2 laps, all 3 Ferraris have picked up damage, and that really is worst case scenario for a team that feel more pressure than anyone else on the grid. Russell, meanwhile, making the move on Yuki Tsunoda into turn number 1. Mercedes versus Racing Bulls KTM. He'll get that move done nicely there. Next up for him will be Arvid Lindblad. But a huge disaster for the Ferrari team. Scuderia Ferrari HP. Wow. Just wow. What an awful start to the Italian Grand Prix. Leclerc is the first round of the pits. He's in 15th position, currently on course for 1 point. Giovinazzi 16th. Lewis Hamilton is dead last. Verstappen there 17th on the back of Giovinazzi. And wow, what could have been a brilliant day for Ferrari. They looked like they had some good pace. It has just turned on its head entirely. And really, the story of them in this Italian Grand Prix is over, as Albon makes the pass there on Valtteri Bottas through the chicane. Next up, to make a similar manoeuvre, is going to be Lando Norris. He's up into the top 10 now. Drivers that started at the back of the field after showing good pace in the first sprint race are making that move pretty quickly now. Still in the early stages of this Grand Prix, but Russell's making the pass around the outside of Arvid Lindblad. He will take that position away from the young British rookie, as then we see Albon getting fended off actually by Yuki Tsunoda. Bold move from the Japanese driver, as he is really just putting his CV out there for all of the teams on the grid to show what he can do in Formula 1, as Norris is going to try and get involved in this battle as well here. 3 wide down the main straight, Albon on the right. Looks like he's got clear of Tsunoda, and Norris will now try to do the same, and does do just that. So he's going to have a little bit of a look back to the inside. Norris, bit of a move there towards the corner. Could have been a bit of a risk there for him. Holds on for that position though, as behind Battle and Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto have both been passed, are about to be passed in theory by Charles Leclerc, who has now got past Sergio Perez. So at least some moves are being made by the Ferraris in this race in the right direction, as we see towards the front of the field. Russell in that 6th position. Next up for him to hunt down will be Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon. Both Haas cars running inside the top 5, but how long will that last, as we see George Russell on the tail of the British driver Oliver Behrman, hotly tipped to be going to Ferrari next year. The question is, will it be as a result of Hamilton retiring or Charles Leclerc giving up on his Ferrari dream? Who knows? Behrman loses that spot for now though, and is running behind his teammate, so perhaps Ferrari will be looking at Ocon next year instead, based on how this weekend has gone. Ocon, the lead Haas driver. Russell on the tail of him now as they head into the parabolic or Alboreto. Russell can get 2 Haas cars in 1 lap and just demonstrate the sheer speed that Mercedes has. Sadly for him though, the top 3 has to check down a little bit. He can just about see Carlos Sainz, but Piastri and Antonelli are in a different venue, frankly, to George Russell at this stage of the Grand Prix. The top 2 have really put in an incredible opening stint of this race. Lindblad in 7th place, and look at that difference in top speed. Racing Bulls Ford versus the Mercedes engine in the back of that Williams. And not only is he going to get that position on Lindblad, he's also going to get the place on Oliver Behrman. But Lindblad, fair play to him, saw an opportunity there and has taken it. he gets up into 7th place ahead of the Haas as well. To Behrman, potentially just adding to Ferrari woes, potentially their driver next year is having some issues as well. Who knows what could happen now in this Grand Prix. Behrman hopefully just can keep it clean at least to save the Ferrari-powered dreams in this one. Ocon doing all of the heavy lifting at the moment for the Ferrari engine around the temple of speed at the moment, as now we see wheel to wheel. That's Bottas and Tsunoda. Tsunoda will lose out on that occasion, as now we see Stroll taking advantage, and into the 11th position the Canadian driver moves up a spot in his Aston Martin Honda, after looking as though he was not going to qualify for this Grand Prix. He's not doing too badly indeed here, as now we see George Russell has caught up to the back of Carlos Sainz for 3rd position. Race pace in the Williams not looking quite as good, at least for Carlos Sainz here. He's feeling a bit of pressure from the Mercedes breathing down the back of his neck as they head towards Ascari, get my right, Ferrari legend corner name there, as we see Russell make the move. Nicely done there from the Mercedes driver. Now he's got a whole lot of clear air to try and relay that to the top 2. I think it might be a little tricky to pull that one off. We'll see if Sainz can fight back though, with Norris in the 9th position at the moment. The McLaren a little bit draggier it seems than the Mercedes, not quite able to make these moves as quickly as his rivals, as of course Albon also making these moves pretty quickly in the race so far, putting quite a few cars between himself and Norris. Norris looking to make the move now on Oliver Behrman towards the first corner. Behrman though going to go defensive, actually looked potentially to move on the KTM ahead of him. Not going to get it done though, as Norris is going to try and go around the outside. That will be the inside now on Arvid Lindblad. Can he get the pass done? The drive on corner exit, will it be enough for him? The Mercedes power says yes, it will. Mercedes brought a whole new engine for this weekend, more power for them, and it looks to be going well for them so far, as Lindblad is feeling the pressure now from Oliver Behrman, as Behrman makes the move on the inside into the 2nd chicane. But fairness to Oliver Lindblad, what a braking zone for him. Absolutely stunning to hold off the Haas there. Behrman potentially thinking about the bigger picture in this race for the Haas team, as we see Norris now on the tail of his teammate. When I say his teammate, I mean Oliver Behrman's teammate in Esteban Ocon. Ocon in that 6th position has lost the place to Albon now. Russell driving away in 3rd position. Albon next up will be trying to look to find his teammate, as Norris will get the move done on Esteban Ocon. And the drivers that we were expecting to see at the front of this Grand Prix are pretty much where we thought they'd be now, although slightly further back than the leader than we would have hoped going into this one. Giovinazzi and Leclerc making their way up to the Giovinazzi once again now as the lead Ferrari on the road ahead of Charles Leclerc. Colapinto in 15th position, Verstappen only in 16th spot, and as things stand, not going to score points as Carlos Sainz now has his teammate on his tail, and Lando Norris in the mix as well as they head down the main straight. It is Carlos Sainz followed by Alexander Albon, and Lando Norris will try and make it 3-wide as they head towards turn number 1. Sainz held on to that podium position for the early stages of this race, but now looks like he's going to lose not only that, but 4th position as well to his teammate. Albon has had the upper hand on his teammate this weekend so far, and Sainz will lose that position despite starting on the front row. He is down into 5th place and could be at threat of losing that position as well to McLaren of Lando Norris. Leclerc now back to being the top Ferrari in this race. The drama between those two Ferrari cars clearly hasn't put them off battling each other, as we see they're battling once more. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc trying to make a pass there, Antonio Giovinazzi making a pass there on the Racing Bulls KTM of Arvid Lindblad as they head down the main straight once more. Lap 12 of 13, getting oh so close to the finish. Penultimate lap of the race is underway. Ocon in 7th place, trying to hold on to that spot from Lance Stroll. The Aston Martin not looking too bad in race trim here, at least with the Canadian driver behind the wheel. Alonso's first weekend after announcing his retirement not going well at all for him. There's a bit of contact there between Behrman and Leclerc. Leclerc on the outside of that first chicane. Going to keep them side by side now as they head through Curva Grande. Leclerc on at the inside, and looks as though that Ferrari should have the power to outdrag its fellow Ferrari-powered car in the Haas. Works Ferrari there, just having a little bit more pace, it seems, despite having some issues earlier in this Grand Prix, as Leclerc to the top 9 now. It's not what he would have been dreaming of. Someone, however, who is living the dream is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. He has just one more corner separating him from back-to-back Grand Prix wins, and not just that. it would be his home Grand Prix victory as well. An incredible drive from him today. All he has to do is safely navigate the final corner here. Parabolica Alboreto. He gets through it nice and easily done. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, he won in Spa, and you won't guess what's coming next. He wins in Monza. Antonelli is a home Grand Prix winner for the Mercedes team. Oscar Piastri comes home in second place there, finally getting a podium on board for his 2026 season. A strong recovery from George Russell. The championship leader will limit the damage done to his points lead. He comes home in third place there with Alexander Albon, the man who had to start towards the very back of this field, coming home in fourth place, just ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz there. What a drive from Andrea Kimi Antonelli. You have to imagine that in that race, he really must have felt all of Italy watching him, and, well, he didn't let it show. He really didn't. What a drive from him. Lights to flag. Didn't really seem like he felt too much pressure at all in the end there. Oscar Piastri comes home second place. Incredibly, his first podium of the season so far. George Russell in third position there after starting all the way back in 17th. Albon started in 15th. He comes back up to fourth position. Carlos Sainz started on the front row. Comes home in only 5th position. Lando Norris started dead last. Gains 13 places in that one. He finishes in 6th place. Good day for Haas. Esteban Ocon in 7th spot, ahead of Lance Stroll in the lead Aston Martin. Charles Leclerc recovering from that pit stop in 9th place, with Behrman making it a double top 10 for the Haas team in 10th position. Antonio Giovinazzi, a P11 wildcard entry for Ferrari. If he'd said that was what he was going to get going into the weekend, I'd have thought, that's, fair enough. That's about what you'd expect for a wildcard entry. It's been a while since Giovinazzi's raced these cars. But after what we saw in that Grand Prix, you have to be gutted for him. It wasn't really anything wrong that he did, It was a natural sort of racing incident, it seems to him himself and Leclerc, and in the end comes home only in 11th spot when a top 5, I think, would have been possible for both of those Ferrari drivers. Behind him, Arvid Lindblad, a brilliant drive from him in that Racing Bulls KTM, really showing what he can do, and he beats Max Verstappen there. He is the top Ford-powered car. Verstappen in 13th spot, as we see Valtteri Bottas in 14th, and Yuki Tsunoda adds another wildcard entry to the list of those that have scored points this season. So not only, I believe, has every wildcard managed to qualify for every Grand Prix this season, they've also scored points as well, which is incredible, considering that I think Tsunoda probably had the hardest job of all of them so far, coming home in 15th place in the Italian Grand Prix. Brilliant stuff from him. Just missing out on points, Franco Colapinto in the Alpine, the sole Alpine in the field. Fernando Alonso 17th, Sergio Perez 18th, and Lewis Hamilton coming home in dead last position. Wow. What more can you say than wow? A disastrous weekend, and nothing to show for it. Clearly some issues with the car after his incident on lap 1. He dropped down the order pit to try and repair it, but just couldn't do anything about it. And in the end, Lewis Hamilton finds himself finishing this Grand Prix at the 19th position. What a waste of a Sunday, quite frankly, for him. And I would not be surprised if there's a fallout from Ferrari after that one. Already, Fred Vasseur has been giving interviews, trying to explain the situation, I suppose, but he certainly isn't happy at all with it, and has called out the Ferrari chairman himself as one of the key players in Ferrari's struggle this season. Once again, Ferrari folding here at Monza. Let's have a look then at how that leaves everyone in the championship standings then after that race. George Russell, of course, still will lead the way, now by a remarkable 29 points over Lando Norris. Antonelli jumped up into third spot. He is just a few points now behind Lando Norris, the second in the Drivers' Championship. Behind them, you've got Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, somehow fifth in the Championship. I mean, how he's got there, I'm not quite sure. I know they haven't had an awful season, but still, I mean, it's Ferrari. It just comes back to the old adage of it's a Ferrari. You can finish off the rest of that particular quote. Oscar Piastri 6th, finally making his way up the order in the standings. Albon just behind him. Lewis Hamilton 8th in the standings and going in the wrong direction. Next up to pass him would be Lance Stroll, who now finds himself ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso in the standings. So Alonso's retirement season not going to plan at all here. he lines up in the 10th place of the championship so far. Max Verstappen outside the top 10 there in 11th spot, still just the position ahead of Isaac Hadjar, but Hadjar not qualifying for this event has left him in a position now where he's just 2 points ahead of Oliver Behrman in the Haas car, with Ocon just a few points further back as well. So Hadjar, whilst I think his job's pretty much safe, especially considering what he has been like and the chance they may lose Verstappen as well, his job is pretty safe. If he starts getting beaten by some of the cars towards the back of the field that you aren't a locked-in, really sort of safe bet for Grand Prix, then it then could become a problem, because Hadjar has to be qualifying for Grand Prix, and he didn't in this weekend, simply put. Behind them, of course, we mentioned the Haas cars. Pierre Gasly, 15th place at the moment, just a point still ahead of his teammate Franco Colapinto. Perez and Bottas and Giovinazzi all equal on points. Giovinazzi with a solid wildcard event, let's say, although dramatic. Behind him, Arvid Lindblad, 4 points on the board for him. Finally, he has got rid of that duck egg in the points column. He finds himself level with Sebastian Vettel in the standings. Liam Lawson level with Bortoletto and Fornaroli. Yuki Tsunoda on a 1 point as well with his drive today, meaning the only person to have raced this season at all and not scored a point is Nico Hülkenberg, and he has been in every Grand Prix. What is going wrong at Audi? We discussed it earlier, but what is going on at that team? They've just given Bortoletto a new contract, and at least he's got some points on the board. You can at least say that. In the constructor standings, Mercedes undoubtedly leading the way. Williams in third position, just 20 points behind McLaren in second. Ferrari just a further 15 points back from Williams, but they need to be getting up into those top three positions, and I don't see that happening any time soon, frankly. Aston Martin sit in fifth position, just ahead of Red Bull. Haas in the 7th place, looking a pretty comfortable 7th place at the moment, ahead of Alpine. Cadillac will be looking to try and score some more points this season to reel in that gap to the Alpine team. Racing Bulls KTM jump ahead of Audi, though, into that 10th position. Audi now find themselves at the very bottom of the constructor standings, and if they hadn't already moved development onto 2027, maybe now's the time to do just that. But that's all for today's episode of Alternative Apex Project Pinnacle. I do hope you all enjoyed it. Next time out, we are going to another legendary venue in the world of motorsports, and it'll be the first time, technically, that Formula 1 has raced around this full circuit, and that is for the French Grand Prix, Le Mans. Who knows what we'll see there? One thing I do know that we'll see is we shall be seeing at least 2 French drivers wildcarding in their wildcard entries, along with a French team potentially bringing theirs as well. So 3 wildcard entries next week, 2 French drivers and 1 French team as well. So I'll let you guess who that may be. But that's all for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Until next week, goodbye.